JB, this week's Coach's Corner. It says on the screen from a usual suspect, although lately not as much, but let's say a decade ago, this team, even less than a decade ago.
Not even long as that. Yeah, less than, for sure.
This was a team that you were put up there as one of the kings of the East, no doubt. And they are back on track right now, although they have a really tough game coming up this Saturday. We'll talk about that, obviously. But we want to bring in, for the second time, as he was on with us probably about, maybe a decade ago or 9 years ago on our audio version of In the Huddle back when. And we enjoyed having him. He's one of our first out-of-conference guests when we were at the Liberty League show. Now that we're at East Region show, we brought him back. Here is head coach of St. John Fisher, Paul Fosberg, in his 29th season. I don't know how it's possible, Coach. You look great for a 29-year head coach.
Well, thanks. It's been a long time, but it's been fun.
That's one thing. Let's start this way, guys. Is it still fun? I mean, and at what point do you say to yourself, if it's not fun, I'm out of here? I mean, you control your own destiny as much as anybody in that decision. We always joke around with Pete Fredenberg down at Mary Hardin Baylor about, is this a year coach? Is this a year coach? And he's got a couple national championships to go with it, so he could justify what he does. But he always comes back and actually looks rejuvenated every September when I see him. For you, you look great. I mean, what is your kind of stance toward what the future is like for you in terms of coaching?
Well, as long as I still have the energy and enjoy what I'm doing, I'm going to continue to do it. So I really haven't thought about retiring or giving up the game. I love the game, and I love working with these young kids. These young kids keep you young. When you're hanging around with all 18 to 22-year-olds all the time, it's hard for you to get old. And so I don't want to hang out with the old people, so I'm not going to retire.
That sounds like a good plan. I got a lot of those just out the window here in Florida, Coach. So, but and talk about the youth and all that. You guys are killing it on social media. I'm waiting for you to see you like doing some kind of like dance or something in the locker room after a win with your guys, like you see some of the upper division schools. But this past weekend at halftime, you probably had to. It wasn't so much fun. You guys were down 16-5 to a pretty tough TCNJ team. What did you tell your team at halftime that kind of woke them up and you guys scored like 35 unanswered points after that to get the win?
Well, I think the biggest thing we talked about was one, you have to win with good fundamentals. We have to be fundamentally more sound here in the second half with our blocking and our tackling. The plays aren't going to change. What we're running isn't going to change. We just need to do a better job with our fundamentals, and we need to stay together as a team. I said that's my biggest concern, is that as a team you're not pulling for each other and helping each other and trying to find a way to make it better for each other. And if you do that and you stay together as a team and you get fundamentally better, we can come back and win this game.
Well, the teams you play, let's look at it. Buffalo State, historically, no pushover. Bridgewater State, a team that was really, we thought, one of the highlight teams in the MASCAC coming into the season. Whether or not that comes to pan out, we'll find out. But they seem to be a decent team. TCNJ is a team that not many people have given much credit to coming into that game, and they seem kind of high on life around halftime. Give us your view. I mean, is TCNJ a team to be reckoned with this season from what you saw from them?
I think they're a pretty good team. I think they're very well coached. And I said that in the beginning of the week when our staff was getting ready for TCNJ. I said, I really believe these guys are well coached. They're fundamentally sound. They don't make a lot of mistakes on offense, defense, or special teams. And I said, we need to be prepared. And I said, they've got some good people, and they've got a couple real good players. So their punter, I think their punter is a Division I punter. I mean, he's very good and so on. So we felt coming into the game that this is a good football team, and don't take this team lightly. Don't look at their record. They're an awful good, they played Muhlenberg to start with. Muhlenberg's 7th or 8th ranked in the country and so on. So they played a very good team there. And so they're a good football team. I think that they'll be all right. They got a tough road in front of them, of course, with the end jack and stuff like that, but they'll be fine.
Well, football is definitely the consummate team sport, but it does take some good to kind of take you to the next level. And it looks like, both on offense with guys like Hunter Walsh, and on defense, I think is it Jason Rodriguez, your defensive back, who's currently like in the top in the interception leader in the country right now. He had a couple of picks against TCNJ. Seems like you got a nice balance between both the offenses and the offense and defensive side of the ball. Is that really what you were hoping for, or maybe is it kind of a little unexpected this early in the season that things are kind of clicking for you?
No, we thought going into the season that we could be good on offense and defense, and if we did a good job with our fundamentals and stayed within our system, that we could be a pretty good team, and that offense could complement defense and defense could complement the offense and help each other out during the game.
Coach, the next game up, though, obviously is going to take a lot of balance and a lot of, I think, crossing the fingers as well, that everything executes well on the field for you, because it is against Ithaca, a team that is, let's say, a good team before Joe Germinario showed up on their doorstep eventually. And obviously he adds even more to their offense. But let's just focus on the entire team of Ithaca. Their defense is standing up and doing well. They held Alfred in check last weekend, and Alfred is a good team as much as anybody out there, so it was a great job by them. What should we expect this weekend, do you think, from Ithaca? Are we going to see a lot of Joe Germinario runs and passes, or are you more worried about their defense? What aspect of Ithaca do you kind of cue in on, and how is your team going to be able to respond to that?
Well, I think Ithaca is good in all three phases of their game. Their punter and kicker do a great job, so they can win some field position battles with those guys. He's punting very well. He's averaging about 44 yards a punt. Their kickoff guys averaging over 61 yards on every kickoff, and they're getting good field position for their offense and for their defense, and so on. Offensively, they're very, very good. They're a fast-paced offense, and with Joe back there, quarterback, they just added another starting quarterback. They have two starting quarterbacks, and they got one of the top receivers in the country. In fact, they have two of the top receivers. Both number 5 and number 2 are outstanding receivers for Ithaca, and so on. And they have a nice running game. They have a balanced line, good physical line. So they're good on offense. They're very good on offense, and got to be a way. You can't let them get some big plays. If they get big plays on you, you're going to be in trouble in that, because as soon as they get a big play, boy, they're up on the line of scrimmage ready to go real fast again. And that's hard on the defense. When a team gets motoring along, gets some tempo going, and gets that speed going, it makes it tough on your defense. Our offense is going to have their hands full as well, because they're good defensively. They're very sound. They're not making a lot of mistakes in that secondary or in the defense at all. They're not giving up run yardage. They're not giving up pass. I mean, that's a good defensive football team, and so on and so forth. So we got our hands full in all three phases of the game. So we need to figure a way to win a couple of those phases and maybe come out with a win here.
Hey, JB, I think your job's in jeopardy. I think Coach Voss should actually be with me below here, because he can break down a game better than you can right now.
Give me the hook for sure, Coach. This might be a little random question, but guys from my and maybe earlier vintages will remember that pretty much every football game was played on a grass field. These days, it's all artificial turf. You guys have the Buffalo Bills coming up to your nice turf field and using your facilities in the preseason every year because it's NFL quality. But you're going down to Butterfield, which I think is, along with maybe St. Lawrence, one of the last few natural grass football fields. At least you're playing on September 28th. It's not November, so that it won't actually be a quagmire just yet. But is it something different for the kids these days to have to put on a little longer spikes and play on natural grass? Does it change the game plan a little bit, or is it's just a football field? We try to tell the kids it's just a football field. Now we do practice on grass. We have our turf field, but then we also have two grass fields here that the Bills use, and the one in the back is kind of our grass field. So we practice on the grass at least a couple times a week. So it's not foreign to our kids, and so
I don't think the grass is going to affect our kids that much in the game and stuff like that. I think where it sometimes affects the game a little bit is it goes unnoticed at times is when you're punting the football and kicking the football. When it hits turf, you don't know where it can get another 15, 20 yards, and that may not be true on the grass, and so it could be affect that
right
could
in there,
affect us a little bit.
And even the
But
planting a little
that
bit
grass
for
field, but-
kickers. Yeah, the planting for kickers is different too, I've noticed at times. So that can affect them both punting and for place kicking as well. Coach, the Empire 8 has gone through a lot of changes over the last decade or so. And a lot of people wonder, or wondered, let's say, about the mix of state schools with private schools and how long that would work for and would it be feasible to stay around. Now, there's kind of been some horse trading going on with Buffalo State moving over to the Liberty League, but then kind of Liberty League and Empire would say, hey, let's schedule together and do our kumbaya that way. I kind of want to focus on this state school, private school mix and how you think it's going. I remember talking to Coach DeLong back when he was with Springfield. Didn't seem to be a huge fan of it. Ithaca, I think part of the reason they wanted to move to the Liberty League was to get away from it as well, but they obviously knew they needed a seventh team in the Liberty League for their AQ, so Q and Buff State. But Morrisville, Cortland, and of course I'm going to forget one, Brockport. How could I forget Brockport? It's the state school in the Empire 8.
Don't tell Coach Potter.
Yeah, seriously, he's going to be texting me right after this. But what is your feeling about the state school mix in the Empire 8? You have Bridgewater State on your normal schedule. You played Buffalo State to start the season, so it's not like you're avoiding state schools altogether. But is this, let's say, mold right now of the Empire 8 something that you think will last forever, or is it something that the private schools might want to eventually get away from?
I'm not quite sure where we're going with this at this point. It is different because we're different schools and we have different recruiting requirements. And that's probably the biggest thing is when it comes down to recruiting, usually the people in your conference are going to be very similar schools and you're kind of recruiting the same kids, you're recruiting the same way, and so on. Like if you're an Ivy League school, you're all about the same, academically, athletically, the whole 9 yards. That's not true with the state schools versus the private schools and that. And I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but it is different in recruiting when people in your conference are state schools versus private schools. There is a different recruiting atmosphere, and recruiting is the name of the game. That you have to have recruiting. It's all about getting quality football players in your program and going from there with it. So that's really changed a lot because we used to be all private schools. Now half of them are state schools.
Let me do a follow-up here if I can, JB. Your success in especially the 2000s as your program grew, I used to blame on two things. I guess contributed two things did in this case. One, your scheduling. You scheduled over your head for a number of years, and we talked about that the first time you were with us and wanted to kind of learn from you as to what your approach was in that. But also, to recruiting. Has it been tougher for you to schedule because of some of the requirements the conference and the conference agreements put on you, the way that you want to schedule? And is the recruiting that much tougher now that has made it tougher to, let's say, be continuously that upper echelon team over the last, let's say, especially 5 years or 6 years?
The recruiting has gotten tougher. There's no doubt. It's a tougher scenario recruiting as a private school than it was 10 years ago, especially with the state schools that you're dealing with and the tuition costs they have or don't have that we have and so on. So it is different recruiting because a kid may love one of the private schools, but the state school cost is different, severely different at times, that they can't afford to come to your school. So that does hurt you in recruiting, no doubt. As far as in scheduling, scheduling is always tough. It's gotten harder over the years because a lot of the leagues only have like maybe 1 or 2 games that they need to fill. Some conferences only one game to fill. And so they pick out one team and so on and so forth. We now, with our schedule being changed, and only have conference games. So we have to have 4 non-conference games. That's why the merger a little bit with the Liberty League and saying we're going to cross over and play each other has helped us a little bit. And that some of the teams that we're going to play down the road will be Liberty League teams, just like this year we've got a couple Liberty League schools. We got 3 of them on our schedule. We were fortunate to get the College of New Jersey and Bridgewater State as our other 2 non-conference games. But they'll last a couple of years, and then we'll have to see what we can find after that.
Well, Coach, I guess to kind of maybe talk about this upcoming matchup, but also sort of looking back to last season. I mean, it's interesting. You got almost like 2 different elements on the same Ithaca team, right? Because you're used to playing against Joe Germanero when he was at Brockport, and obviously Coach Fox, you know that defense well. He was a coach under you for a long time, but now Joe's kind of across the lake, so to speak, or just down the interstate a little bit. What would you say are some of the similarities, at least from on film, that you've seen between some of these older the Brockport teams from a couple years ago, plus kind of what you're seeing on it with Ithaca now?
Well, Ithaca is similar to what Brockport was offensively. They're going to throw the football and that, and Joe can make plays happen. I mean, Joe can extend plays, and that's what makes him tough as a quarterback, whether he was at Brockport or at Ithaca. He can extend plays and throw the football, and he's got some very good skilled kids around him too, and they did at Brockport, so that hasn't changed. And that, so getting after Joe is the thing, and he's a big, strong kid, and he's physical, and we're going to have our hands full with him because he is such a good football player. And again, I think their offenses are somewhat similar, throwing the ball, running the ball, and stuff like that. And Joe, bringing the talent he has, that talent's the same as it was when it was at Brockport, so he hasn't missed a beat.
Coach, you've been at Fisher. We started this interview by saying this is your 29th season. A lot of people didn't know that much about St. John Fisher until your run in the mid-2000s, especially into the late 2000s. Then they started to learn real fast. What is it? Give me one thing that you love the most about St. John Fisher that's kept you there as long as it has, besides the kids keeping you young and all that stuff. What's one thing that maybe people don't know about the school even, that you just absolutely adore about it, and it's one of the things that's kept you coming back?
Well, it's a real good community as a whole. I think the good support from the administration, first and foremost. As a coach, you got to have support from your administration. So that's key, and that's always been there for us. And that's allowed us to grow as a football program. If we didn't get support from the administration to start with, we can't grow as a football program. And then the school just kind of jumped in with that. We have a really good student body. They're good kids. They're good people. And that's what it's all really about. I mean, anywhere you go in your job, you want to be surrounded by good people. And I think we have good people here, and that makes it easy to stay.
Well, one of my favorite college memories was actually happened at St. John Fisher. I was playing in my first ever JV game as a college freshman for Hobart, and after the first series, I came off the field and I heard somewhere behind me like, "Hey, 36!" And I turned around, and my dad was there. He had been playing in a golf tournament in Cazenovia, which is about 2-3 hours east, and he just showed up and sort of surprised me there. And instead of taking the team bus ride home, I hopped in his rental convertible, and we drove down I-90. One of the happier times from my freshman year. It was a good time, and I always have fond memories of St. John Fisher. Even though one of your running backs ran me over a couple times, but it was a fun game.
You won't find James Baker in many stat sheets from those old days, so don't waste your time looking, okay, Coach?
No.
Okay.
Coach Vosberg, we could talk to you all day. And I think I closed last time by saying that same thing. We really could talk to you all day because you are a great football mind and a great historian of what our region has been through. You've helped lead us to points where only Brockport has brought us back to since, essentially, in the last decade plus. And, I think a lot of teams have learned from you. It's made things tougher. I used to say to John Audino when he went 10-0 in 2005 and had another playoff season in 2006 with his whole going down to Florida recruiting approach, that he taught a lot of teams how to do it, and a lot of teams did it, and even the score essentially with him. And that's what happens. They learn from guys like you, and you had to stay on top of it. But look, a 3-0 start, you're obviously doing something right again here. And so we'll see how it works this weekend and then for the rest of the 7 games in your schedule. But, Coach, we appreciate your time and appreciate you, especially in our region. Thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate you having us and so on. It's really, it's not what I'm doing, it's what my guys are doing.
There you go. You read it right, folks. It's not just a player interview this week. We have players being interviewed. And, we thought it was a fitting tribute, especially after JB kind of got ripped by this team for a little bit during the early part of the season, with good reason at this point, because they are 3-0. JB, do the honors.
Well, Frank, it's probably the most interesting way you can say pirate, and it's the UMass Dartmouth Corsairs, who are 3-0 for the first time since, I guess, in the best start in 16 seasons. And we'd like to welcome on 2 of the guys helping lead the way for the Corsairs, junior quarterback Steven Gachuk and senior linebacker Tony Slaughter, the MASCAC Defensive Player of the Week. Guys, congratulations on the 3-0 start. How does it feel?
It was awesome. Ready to go. Feel great. Ready for Plymouth.
Ready for Plymouth. We will definitely talk about that in a little bit. One thing, though, we want to talk about last week's game, Fitchburg State first, of course. And Tony, you had, I think it was 7 tackles, or 8 total actually. And how many for loss? 4 tackles for loss, something along those lines. The defense has definitely had some ups and downs this season. The Husson game giving up 41 points, but 20 points in the other 2 games combined. What's the flow right now in the defense? Kind of give me some feel for what the defense feels their role is in terms of making this a successful season, especially in a game like last week's.
I think our role is to just come in and do our job every week. We know that when we're playing our best football, that no one's going to beat us. We can only beat ourselves. I think that against Husson, we had a lot of mistakes, mental errors that allowed them to score 41 points on us. They're definitely a great team, and I'm not taking nothing away from them. But 41 points is a lot, and I don't think we should have given them that much. But our first game against Alfred and this past week against Pittsburgh, we really tightened up, kept the mental errors down to a very low number, and that's why our defense is looking so good. And I think that along with the offense, we both play big parts in how this team is 3-0. Our offense is putting up 40 points a week, so that's great right there. Our defense doesn't have to do that much of a job if they're doing 40, but if we can keep them under 10, that's what we want to do.
Well, tell us a little bit about the game last weekend. You were playing. You're listed as a linebacker, but you're defending passes, you're blocking punts, you're tackles for loss. You seem like you're all over the field. Is that kind of the Corsairs way of just putting guys out there and just making plays?
Yeah, this year we just want to, our defense especially, get as many athletes, playmakers on the field as possible. So we're going to change packages up and try to get as many of those playmakers on the field as possible, whether it's putting me at linebacker, putting me at safety, putting me at D-end, wherever I am to make a play, he's going to put me there, have someone else come in that could do a better job at another thing. That's what our defense is. We have a lot of guys this year.
So now let's go to that offense that you were just touting, putting up a lot of points, et cetera. And Stephen, my stat master, James Baker, actually sent me this earlier, so I'm going to read his script for me, apparently. He thinks I can't find these numbers, but I appreciate it, JP. You have 1,039 passing yards. That's in 3 games, folks. 13 touchdowns, third best in the nation. What's going on here? I mean, teams like Husson are very good teams defensively usually. Yes, they give up some points here and there historically in the last few years during their really good run, but this just feels like a really special scenario for you. Let me read my screen. Your junior year, heads up to everybody in the MASCAC. He's got another year left after this, it looks like. But, what is going on here? What is making this so special for you right now?
Well, my offensive coordinator, Coach Sylvester, has done a great job of explaining to me what he wants. He's given me the ability to go to the line and make changes. So if we have a bad play, make a bad play into a good play. Leave a good play as a good play, and don't try to make another mistake. So we're just basically kind of counting numbers, see what we have, and picking our best matchup based on what we have. Against Huston last week, there were a lot of man-to-man, one-on-one coverage, and we were able to win a lot of the 50-50 balls and put up a lot of points. This week against Fitchburg, they wanted to play a 5-man box, so we went and ran the ball a bunch.
Okay, so, last year there was a similar win-loss record scenario in terms of your start. You were 3-1 to start the season, and you end up at a 5-5 overall record. So we compare this to like WPI back in the days of the Liberty League for them. They would start 3-0, it seemed like every season, but then they would end up somewhere in like the 5-4, 5-5 range themselves. For whatever reason, maybe strength of schedule at the beginning of the season, it's tough to tell. But what did you learn from last year that you're going to be able to apply to this season? And obviously Plymouth State's a tough team coming up next. We'll get to that in a second. But what did you learn last year, guys? We'll start with Stephen, then go over to Tony at that point. What did you learn that will help you not make the same mistakes in the second half of the season?
For me, it was mostly experience. Last year, I was pretty unexperienced. I played a little bit as a freshman, then I got hurt. But mainly it was just a lot of experience, missing wide open guys, just not seeing them, or if it's running a bad play into a defensive front that we couldn't block. Now I just have more understanding what we're going to do, and hopefully we can take that and win all the games that we lost by less than 5 points that we did last year.
Tony?
Oh, yeah, same thing. I think that last year we lost a lot of games where it just comes down to those final possessions or final 2 possessions, whatever, 5 or maybe 10 points, whatever. Just those games, we need to learn how to have those come into wins. And I think that win we had against Hudson was one of those games in the past. We probably wouldn't have pulled it out in the end. And this year, I think, it feels that things have changed. And I think that we keep that focus and that discipline. That's what's really going to keep us winning those close games where it comes down to maybe a couple plays, because we're playing against good athletes every game in MASCAC. It's guys that are in the same level as us. So it comes down to those mental areas. Who's going to make the least amount of mistakes, and that's going to get the wins in. We're really focusing on that this year, winning the rep, and just trying to stay mistake-free and do everything the right way.
Now, with Plymouth State coming up this weekend, they're kind of a throwback team and program. You see they like to run the ball a lot. They don't do a whole lot of the spread and some of the play action stuff that's more modern offenses are doing. You guys are holding teams to only 70 rush yards per game. What do you think you'll have to key on to kind of keep that performance going against a Plymouth State team that's definitely going to be running at you most of the game?
Definitely focusing on that running game with Plymouth. We know that they're returning 2 running backs that are strong. Their line is big and strong up front, so they're definitely going to try to establish the run. And we know that if we stop the run, they're going to be forced to pass, and that's what we want every team to do, because then if they're into our game plan of bringing pressure and they're getting dropped back, we're bringing pressure on them. They're making bad decisions. So if we can stop the run, that's really our focus, and that's what we're going to do this week. Try to do that all season, actually.
On the flip side, though, Plymouth defensively has done quite well in their 3-0 start. Castleton, they gave up 17 points against, but only 15 points in the last 2 games combined. Stephen, what do you know about this defense, without giving away state secrets right now, about what your game plan is going to look like here? But in the past, what have you seen from them? What do you expect to see from them this season?
Well, Plymouth State is always a very disciplined team. So what they do is they hold you to make mistakes. Once you make mistakes, they go and they run the ball for the next 8 minutes and we don't leave the ball back. Mm-hmm. So we're really focused on winning every single play and just not making that key mistake that will allow them to take the ball and hold it for the rest of the quarter. With our up-tempo, we just kind of make sure we don't make any of those big mistakes that are going to give up the ball or make it third and unmanageable and make a situation that we can't win.
So, JB, we got two New Englanders through and through here. The man to the left is from Rhode Island, and the man to the right on our screen, at least, is from Massachusetts.
Connecticut.
Well,
three New
York.
Englanders, guy. Yeah, that's right. So first, I'd like to start off with Tony, who I read about in the MASCAC Defensive Player of the Week release. You originally started your college career at Bryant University, an upper division school. What led you to decide to transfer to Dartmouth, and how's it gone?
Well, big decision in my transferring here was the builds at Bryant were just crazy. And then also my brother was already here. So the coaching staff knew me very well. They recruited me in high school. So they was already on my school's list. But me being a senior in high school, I was my ego was more inflated. I was trying to go to a D1 school, not really looking to go D3. And then just the way life goes, you learn lessons. And sometimes it's not even about just what you want to do. It's just about what's going to help you grow as a man in life. And coming to UMass Dartmouth, my first year leaving Bryant, the school that I wanted to go to, I had to learn, put myself into perspective as, okay, I'm playing at a D3 school. I played at a D1 school. I know that I have the skill to play at a D1 school, but that doesn't mean that a D3 school doesn't have kids like that, because you see kids like Gachick who are throwing for 1,000 yards who could very well be just at a D1 school like these other kids. And there's plenty of other kids on our team that just like that who could be playing at these upper D1 schools who maybe just didn't get the opportunity or just didn't know the college process. But I really just think that my first why I came over here just because of money, and my brother was here. And then I've learned so much since I've been at UMass Dartmouth, and I appreciate all the coaching and all the players and just all the staff for helping me grow into the man I've become today.
Stephen, is he always this much of a team leader type in the way he sounds? Because I'm ready to run through a wall for him right now, let alone a coach.
Yeah, right.
He always is like that. He's a great team leader. He's been our captain for the last 2 years, and even as a sophomore, he was a leader my freshman year. So it's great to have him being a vocal leader on defense, and then I'm more of a quiet leader and lead by example, but he's definitely more the voice of the team.
Why UMass Dartmouth for you?
For me, it came down to money as well. I was looking at WPI, I was looking at all of the engineering schools. I'm an engineering major here, but I just couldn't afford any of the bigger schools for me to go to, and I didn't have the size coming out of high school to play at a Division I level. And UMass Dartmouth and Coach Robershaw just got me to come here, and I love it here.
So, guys, early in the season, social media-wise, my friend down here was getting ribbed a little bit about some of the things he was saying or not saying about UMD, and you kind of made it like, where's our respect? Where's our love, JP? We didn't know that UMD had any kind of connection to In the Huddle. We cover you, obviously, but we didn't know you were necessarily watching and listening. And suddenly we're getting a little bit of flack on this. Has our ratings gone up at all since JB has, let's say, rectified the situation as you guys have gone to 3-0 and given a lot more attention to you?
Is that a question for Steve?
It's for anyone that wants to answer it, including your SID.
I don't want to answer that question. I
wasn't, as the SID, I wasn't aware of any flack, but I can tell you we very much appreciate your coverage of our student athletes in our program, and
all publicity,
we're excited to
publicity.
play. We're
unfortunately,
as you know, you can't control everything on social media, but our kids do a great job with it, and we're very excited and very appreciative of it.
Well, we appreciate a good 3-0 start and a good story. In doing this for the first time in 16 years is a great story, actually. We got this Plymouth State game coming up here, obviously, and it is going to be an interesting big one. We were highlighting it in our host chat segment that will air before this, and definitely have it circled to watch this week. If you watch the show, what comes up next, guys, we give you the opportunity for shout-outs, and that's any family, friends, teammates, anybody that might be watching. We're going to start with the youngster and go to the senior after that. So, Stephen Gacha, shout-outs for you.
Shout-outs probably the coaching staff, the whole team, and then my family back at home who just support me with everything I do.
Tony?
For me, I just got to give shout-outs to my family, my brother Michael, my sister Taina, my parents Michael Sr., my mom Glenda, all my family that supports me, and then the whole team, coaching staff. Coach Tex, That's our linebacker coach. Coach Banner, that's our defensive coordinator. Coach Slaughter's the safety coach. And Coach Aguilar, all the coaches. That's the whole defensive coaching staff. Offensive coaching staff, they love me too. I love them. But I just got to shout out the defense because I'm a defensive guy.
I got a feeling both of you guys. Oh.
Well, go ahead.
I have to give a shout out to, I think, one of the assistants, Ryan Struthers. He might have been the guy behind the scenes with the football Twitter who was kind of saying, "Come on, Baker, what's going on here?" But I could tell, this is a true, good team here, offense versus defense in practice. I mean, you guys are just making each other better, and it's showing.
Absolutely. Playing against Tony every day was a whole nother level. I mean, Tony, I think, intercepted me 4 times in camp. He put it on Instagram, made fun of me a little bit. But it was definitely good to compete against a defense like this.
And that's going to make me want to throw it. I'll do it again, too.
We got to go find that Instagram post. Anyway, my shout out is to Jim Seavey, I believe was in the background there, SID.
Yeah.
Jim, do you have any shout outs you want to give?
Guys, I'm just appreciative to get to work with these great kids every day. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to them about our start and our program. And I'll let you know a little secret. I petitioned ESPN, see if I can get Gaychuk as my backup quarterback to Brady on my fantasy team. But I don't think they're going to let me do it.
Stats are pretty good. So,
Frank,
you were mentioning earlier this.
I'm pretty proud of the name of my fantasy team. It's a Deflate Gateman.
Yeah, we're definitely in Buzzards Bay, New Bedford Patriots territory. So that's good stuff. Frank, remember when you mentioned earlier the 17 touchdowns? Well, Steven had 13 in 10 games last year. Only took him 3 to get to 17. So he's well on his way to having a pretty epic year. I'd want him on my fantasy team too.
I think you have a reversed, my friend. I think he's got 13 right now. He had 17 last season.
Of course.
Don't worry. It's still a lot of touchdowns in 3 games, for my goodness sake.
Yes.
So only 4 interceptions.
Another thing, guys, about their careers. Tony was a first-team return specialist last year in the MASCAC and also all-conference and defensively. So you talk about his versatility. He won over 200 career tackles last week against Fitchburg. And Steve is already over almost at 4,300 career yards in just 20 starts, and those are Dan Fouts, Dan Marino type numbers right there. So these 2 kids they're not only great leaders, they're very special players.
Jim obviously went to the Rusty Egan Ways to promote your players school, because Rusty would do this in a heartbeat right now over at WPI.
Yeah, but I don't talk as much as he does, though.
Totally. Hopefully, you're a better
guys.
field goal kicker too.
Anyway, let's end this before we lose complete control of the situation. But guys, again, big game coming up against Plymouth State. Congratulations on the 3-0 start. Let's see where this goes this season. Last season, 3-1 goes to 5-5. This year, 3-0 goes to who knows what. It's in your guys' hands as much as anyone. So good luck to you.
Thank you.